Welcome to Workflow Manager training. This is the first Workflow Manager training movie, so before we are going to build our first workflow, we are going to start with a checkup of the installation. I've listed all the different parts that you should have configured. If you have any doubts, please look into the install manual and go through the steps to verify what you might have missed. I'm going to very quickly run through every step to show you what you should have installed. If you're installing on Windows, you should have copied into the program data folder called Moksa, containing this folder, which contains the workflow tasks. Depending on what version you have, you can have more or less tasks here, but this folder needs to be copied in. The second thing that you should have installed, copied, is in the Cumulus Server Enterprise. You should have installed, copied this, where is it? Here, this folder. That means that this workflow folder, workflow manager folder, is the back-end engine of Workflow Manager, which will be executed from the Cumulus scheduler. The next part that should be installed is the Cumulus EJAP. In every Cumulus client where you want to use the Cumulus, the Workflow Manager builder, you should install this EJAP. So this EJAP is here, com.moksha.workflow generator. So you should put that in. For the web part, you should have installed in the web solutions, you should have inside a copy of sites. We usually propose to put it in a separate copy, the workflow. You can customize, go to the customize part, and you should have put this part in here, and you should have edited this file, setting up the Cumulus administrator as the user to connect to Cumulus, and you can check the other parameters in the install manual. When finished with this part, you should also have copied in this workflow manager folder, workflow reporter folder, and inside this workflow reporter folder you should have put a copy of the file you just edited in the customizations part. You should copy that version to here so that these parameters can be used in this website too. You should have copied in 2 catalogs, at least 1 catalog. So in your Cumulus installation, you should have now a $workflows catalog. That's the mandatory catalog for your workflow. And in this catalog, you will see later in this demo how to create workflows. The second catalog is called Workflow Assets Catalog. This is not a mandatory catalog. This is a catalog that comes with the installation as a demo catalog. You can use any catalog you want to keep your assets or manage your assets in, but in that case any other catalog you should have prepared them with the Workflow Manager prepare catalog functionality. So let's go back to our main catalog. In the preferences, if you copied in this setup, you should, let me make this closer, if this is a version that can work with the Workflow Manager, you will see that you have a Workflow Manager item here. In this part you should define your default sites URL. This site URL will be used inside your tasks, so you don't have to repeat the URL to your website every time. So you should specify this here once up front before starting to use the Workflow Manager. You also have the ability to configure LDAP settings if you're working with the Workflow Manager Enterprise version that allows the interaction with LDAP and users and roles. You can also configure an email server. This is a setting that you can use for using the email from Email Manager from Cumulus itself. Then you just say use Cumulus : the IP address of your Cumulus server and a username and a password that is allowed to send email. The other parameters in that case are not important, but if you want to use your own email server outside Cumulus email, then you should specify all these parameters here and you can test it. If you set up these preferences correctly, one other thing that you should have created in the Scheduler Manager, you should have created a manager task, Workflow Manager task, in which you should have added one catalog. Usually we set this to this cron annotation, which means that it runs every minute. This is the backend functionality. So the more often this runs, the quicker your tasks are processed and the quicker your users get notified. It also comes with a record view set and a category view set. So you should have imported that record view set and category view set, both called workflow, so you can see the workflow fields inside the $workflows catalog. In preparation of your installation, you should also have added in permissions to your users or roles. If you're working with the Workflow Manager Enterprise, then you will be using the roles. If you're working with the Workflow Manager Workgroup, then you will only be setting up users and you cannot have the roles and permissions. Let me show you an example of a few roles that I prepared. I prepared design, management, marketing, printer, product management and sales. If I have a look in these in these roles, you will see that you can give them access. If you want them to work in the Workflow Manager, you need to give them access to the the Workflow Assets catalog, or whatever catalog you chose to take that role. The Workflow Assets catalog will contain the assets that are used in the workflow. And if you want the user to be able to start workflows, then you need to add this permission, Workflow Portal. If you want the user to be able to monitor, to access workflows in the Workflow Reporter, you should add this permission. You can also add $workflow admin if this is an administrator. So this user can go into the Workflow Reporter and delete workflows and that kind of stuff. You can also add the permission $Workflow Reporter admin, which means that this user can change users and other stuff that participate in a workflow. So that's what you need to prepare here. Don't forget to check your Mail Manager and test your Mail Manager, because the key functionality of Workflow Manager is notifying users of a task to perform. So if your mail is down, then it cannot notify. Workflow Manager works with the Workflow Assets catalog using the Vault, because people can upload files in the web. You don't want those files to be residing on your web server. You want them to reside in your internal organization, and to be able to do that from a web server, we use the Vault. So you have to make sure that you enable the Vault, and you have to make sure that in your catalog in your catalog that you also enabled the Vault. So if you go to your catalog settings, that the Vault is updated. It will point in the demo version that you get, it will point to the local host Vault, which is probably or maybe not your vault, so you should select it before starting to use the workflow manager. Once you've set up all these parts, you will be ready for the next step. So one thing not to forget as well is that if you are using the vault, that the asset handling set that you specified in your configuration, that asset handling set should have access to the vault, so should be set up properly for the vault. And one, I almost forgot, one important thing is Workflow Manager cannot work without a proper license. So you need to either request a demo license for testing Workflow Manager from Moksa, or you can purchase a license. Here you can see Workflow Manager, and you need to register this like you do with any other module or plugin for Workflow Manager. Sometimes people ask, do you need RoboFlow to run Workflow Manager? No, for the basic functionalities of Workflow Manager, you do not need RoboFlow. However, in some cases, if you want files to be added to catalogs automatically, or once they are approved and final inside a workflow, to be passed on to another system or communicating with another system, then RoboFlow might be an interesting part to integrate and to communicate with Workflow Manager. But out of the box, in your basic workflows, you do not need that functionality. So now we are completely installed and ready to start the building of workflows, which we will do in our next movie. Be sure to have checked all these items so you are safe to start building your workflows. Thank you, and please join us for our next training movie.